This dovetails very closely with the Biden administration and their campaign pitch for 2024. They're really trying to sell Bidenomics as a thing and really convince Americans that their actual personal financial situation is a lot better than Americans are telling pollsters that they feel that it is. Interestingly enough, it's a little bit surprising, Karine Jean-Pierre was on CNN, and she was actually pressed on the choice of language using Bidenomics and how they're leaning into this pitch, even though Americans really aren't feeling it. Let's take a listen to that.
His approval rating for his handling of the economy is at 37%, 30% on inflation specifically. From the White House perspective, why is there disparity between the good story, the narrative you think you have to tell, and how it's received by the American people?
So a couple of things, Victor. Look, as we know, polls don't show everything. They don't tell the full story, as you just stated. And we have to remember, if you look at where we were back in the fall of 2022, during the midterm elections, when the president delivered a historic midterms for Democrats, when we think about how, as a Democratic president, he delivered a victory that we hadn't seen in decades, right? And he led that messaging throughout those months going into November. And we are in a stronger position now than we were back then in the fall. And so that is important to note. Look, there's a lot going on in this country, and we understand that, Americans are coming out of a pandemic. We're dealing with a lot when you think about the economy. But here's the thing. This is a president who has spent the last 2 years turning the economy around. You hear us talk about Bidenomics. You just mentioned how we're doing this West Coast swing, talking directly to the American people about how wages are actually going up, about how inflation is going down over a long, extended period of time, more than 12 months. That is important.
Let me ask you about something here, that the branding, you just used the word, we have it on screen, Bidenomics. Yes. We know the polls show that people are pretty sour, at least half American people are sour on the economy. Isn't that just dangerous getting closer to the election if things take a downturn? If, as the CBO predicts, unemployment will get closer to 4.7% by election day, that you've got a narrative now of Bidenomics and things going in a certain way, but that can quickly turn in the opposite direction. Why literally fuse the president's name with the economics that Americans aren't very happy with?
Well, here's the thing. Bidenomics is indeed working when we say that. You look at the data, right? Cost is going down, right? We think about inflation. When you think about wages going up, that is Bidenomics. Look, the president has always believed, not just as president, but as vice president, as a senator, that we need to build an economy that is building from the bottom up, middle out.
That's actually a good question. Why literally fuse his name with economics when people are like, I feel like the economy is absolutely terrible?
The economy, so I'm just going to go ahead and tie myself directly to said economy. I don't know, man. I really don't understand this one, Krystal. I mean, this is one where it's an active choice to try and spin it. My only analysis can be that they seem to believe a lot of the stuff that is out there. And I mean, I just think they're fundamentally misreading the electorate. Actually, if you go and you look at a lot of the midterm data, people did say that inflation was one of their top choices. It's just that they were willing to forgive it because they were so upset at the GOP about abortion.
Yeah.
And they were upset about Stop the Steal. It's not that they're like, yeah, you're doing a great job. I mean, really what you should do, I don't even know what you should call yourself. Like, you should just be like, I'm going to do Roe and that's it. Like, that's all I'm running on. If I were Biden, that's what I would do. The economy's terrible. I don't have a particularly good foreign policy record to run on. My approval rating is second lowest except for Jimmy Carter at this point. So go again. I've got one popular thing and a supermajority on my side for the ballot. It's Roe versus Wade and abortion, as evidenced by what's happened in Ohio. That's it. That's my whole election campaign.
Yeah.
This is a choice. This is like a choice to shoot yourself in the foot. It's just nuts.
I mean, and listen, the voters are saying thus far that maybe you don't need an affirmative economic vision. The theory of the case from the Biden people is like the other side is so bad that they're just going to vote for us anyway. anyway. And, you know, we've had a bunch of these special elections. They all have basically gone in the Democrats' favor. They've outperformed by 10 percentage points on average, partisan leaning in each district. That basically held in Ohio as well in this abortion-related referendum. But to get back to the economic piece here, you know, for people to understand how the top line numbers can look one way and the reality for people can look very, very different. So the White House does have numbers that they can point to. You know, unemployment is really low. There have been a lot of jobs created. I mean, of course, that came out of the COVID recession. So the expectation was that hopefully there would be a lot of new jobs created. Inflation has cooled over the past several months. And actually, we're set to get some new numbers on inflation today as well. So we'll get to see how things are looking there. But if you look at the story of what has happened over the course of the Biden term, you initially had a lot of action on the economy. And that's why when we showed you that chart of people's debt load, it actually went down quite significantly during the early years of the Biden presidency, because there was a lot of action that helped ordinary people. The story of his presidency has been the gradual rolling back of all those protections and supports. Student loan debt coming due again this fall is exactly a case in point of exactly that. So the experience that people have had over these past few years is of their financial situation increasingly becoming more and more precarious. And of course, inflation plays into that as well. So that's why you can have some of these top line numbers that are like, oh yeah, Karine Jean-Pierre can talk about these top line numbers and it sounds really good. But what people are actually living and experiencing is a totally different scenario where every month things are getting a little bit tougher. And Biden has chosen to try to sell what he's already done versus try to lay out an affirmative vision of what he will do. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is going to mean he's going to lose re-election. I think he'd be in a lot better position if he did lay out that affirmative economic vision and there was actually some credibility behind getting it done. But, you know, their theory of the case thus far, that all they have to say is Trump is bad and, you know, Roe versus Wade and Dobbs, et cetera. So far, that has actually worked out pretty well for them. So it's possible it continues to work out well for them. But that doesn't mean much to Americans who are continuing to struggle. Clearly, the Biden team, put this next piece up on the screen, this reporting about how they're thinking about the campaign and what they're going to do to, quote, juice the economic polling. They clearly feel like there is a messaging problem versus a reality problem. What we're trying to lay out for you here is that there's very clearly a reality problem in terms of Americans and their personal financial situation. Their theory of the case is that no, people are actually doing better than they think. They're just not getting the message out about all the great things that we've done for them. And so the model that they're going back to, intentionally or not, based on this reporting from the Washington Examiner, is they want to go back to the rollout of the vaccines, the push that they made to try to get people vaccinated. And they're going to use some of the relational organizing and leaning into trusted messengers, quote unquote, within communities or social media influencers to try to persuade the public that actually Bidenomics is good, actually you're doing great, actually the economy is really wonderful and you just don't understand. That's their theory of how they're going to pull this off. And color me skeptical, Saagar,
yeah,
if that's going to work out.
You should be skeptical. That's basically kind of what my friend Christian Daytalk lays out there in the report, is that they recognize that the Bidenomics framing is not exactly landing, but they're not 100% sure what else to do. Like you said, they think it's a messaging issue, but messaging is not the problem. Reality is the problem. And, you know, until they really get that through their heads, they're just going to be in the precarious situation that they don't have to be in, where Trump very easily could win again. I think he stands as good a shot as any, honestly. I would put it at 50-50 today. And yet it didn't have to be that way. It's entirely a choice of his own making. And, you know, now it's an affirmative choice to go with said Bidenomics, like I was saying. And if he doesn't ditch it, and it doesn't look like it, I think because, Krystal, he genuinely believes in his heart that it's some sort of messaging issue and or that people just don't understand how good they have it. I really think that's what it is. I think his advisors are telling him, look at these fake numbers about how everything is better. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to beat this into the head of people. And that's just not how politics works. You got to meet people where they are.
It's that, and it's a lack of desire to have to actually promise anything.
Yeah, true.
And since he's, you know, unwilling to debate his primary competitors, that means there's not any pressure on him to promise anything in terms of actual, like, material benefit to the American people. So some of the things that that, they've supported in the past, like the child tax credit that was very successful. And none of these have been made as anything approaching a concrete pitch for the next term. So, their theory continues to be, if we can just unite the anti-Trump coalition and keep it all focused around Donald Trump and the fact that, it's going to be a series of trial dates and new indictments and discovery and all of these things that are happening during the campaign season, it's very possible that that theory works out for them. I'm not saying that it's like doomed to fail, but that's cold comfort to people who really could use some help from the federal government. Help that, they were starting to get at the beginning of this administration. They've seen pulled out piece by piece over the course of the past several years.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.